Hey everybody, Ian from ianarthurs.com with another video lesson for you. As usual, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Today's video, we're going to talk about learning your fretboard. Unlocking the fretboard is a mystery for so many people, and quite frankly, I think that's just because people don't take it in small enough, digestible pieces. I have a friend who always likes to say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's what we're going to do here with the fretboard. So we're going to target looking at just the E and the A strings today and start to understand what notes we have on them. A lot of people who are trying to unlock the fretboard often don't know the answer to what I find to be a very simple musical question here. That question is, how many notes are there in music? If you don't know the answer to that question, you will not be able to learn the fretboard. So, how many notes are there in music? The answer is 12. We have 12 total different notes in music that then just repeat in what we call octaves, which are just higher and lower pitches of those same tones. So when we're talking about those notes, I'm going to say them in order for you and put them on the screen here as well. It's A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, and then it resolves back to A. It just keeps looping. They go on infinitely in both directions. They're like numbers in that sense. Notes just keep going both lower and higher in both directions forever. We can only just hear this much of it, that's all. So when we're talking about the notes, you also might notice that I was using sharps when I was talking about the notes. I wasn't saying the flats. Flats are also part of it, but I'm just trying to make it simpler for clarity here. But for every sharp, there is also a flat. So for instance, as we get into this talking about the strings, if I'm on the A string right here, my first note is A, right? It's called the A string. When you hit that open string, that's the A. If you hit the first fret of that string, that note is A sharp. It is also known as B flat. See, sharp and flat are just a fancy way of saying higher than and lower than. That's what it means essentially. So A and one note above A, that's A sharp. If you're on the next note, which is B, and you go down, you might call it B flat. B flat is lower than B. A sharp is higher than A. So that's just a good way to think of it there. But you'll also find that separate from what we're talking about here today, if you're getting deeper into music theory, there are very specific times of when you will name a note A sharp or when you will name it B flat. That, quite frankly, doesn't matter right now. Right now, you just need to know either variation of the note and hopefully both variations of the note. But that's not the most important thing in the world to think about long term. Right now, short term, let's just get those notes down, okay? So we have on the A string, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. So it resolves back to A. Now this is really important. Whenever you see where that's resolving back to A, that is the double dot on your guitar. The double dot is not there by accident. That is trying to tell you something. That tells you where the guitar repeats itself. So the double dot on your guitar is there for a very good reason. That's where the open string, A, it's the same exact note, it's just an octave higher. So it's repeating the same thing, and then quite frankly, the whole neck repeats from that position. So that's A, and then if you keep going, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, and so on and so on. So get to know the notes on one string at a time first, and I like starting with the A string because, once again, it starts with A. It's the beginning of the alphabet. And we have what we call the musical alphabet, which only goes from A to G and has the sharps and flats in between, right? So we don't go the whole way up to Z like we do in the normal alphabet. It's just from A to G with once again, those sharps and flats. Get to know the musical alphabet, memorize that, and then put them up the string, just inching your way up one fret at a time. Now, you'll also notice, as you're looking at these notes, there are two places where the pattern is not the same. From B to C, there is no sharp or flat in between them. It just goes from B to C. Same thing from E to F. There's no sharp or flat between E to F. So if you're trying to memorize the 12 notes initially, it's kind of easy in a way to think of what 2 points don't have sharps and flats. All the rest of them do, so which ones don't? And it's B to C and E to F. So understanding that, those two pairs of notes, B, C, E, F, no sharp or flat between them, will make it a lot easier to remember the fretboard. Now that's something that's visually easier on a keyboard, for instance on a piano, because you have two white keys next to each other for those. On a piano, if you ever look at a piano, all of the white keys are the natural notes, as we call them, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. All the black keys are, we call them accidentals, they're the sharps and flats. So those are sharps and flats where we have, A sharp, C sharp, D sharp, so on and so on. So those are specifically the black keys. So on the piano, there's two places that have two white keys next to each other. B to C and E to F. So when you're thinking about that, keep that in mind. Okay, so now that you have the 12 notes, and you might have to pause the video and work on it a little bit, just repeat it a bunch just to get it down and go up the fretboard, that's totally fine. I want you to do the same 12 notes on the low E string. So it starts with E. So it's the same exact idea, but now you just start your notes that you're saying from E. So you have E, and then as we just talked about a minute ago, there's no sharp or flat between E and F. So once you go up from E, E goes straight up to F. Then we have F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, and then we're hitting the double dot after that. So that's resolving back up to E. It's the octave of E. They are the same note. They are just an octave apart, meaning those 12 notes apart, and it sounds higher. That's it. It's the same note, but higher. So repeat those as many times as you need to, going up the string to start to memorize those. Okay, so once again, that'll take you a little bit of time. You can pause the video, you can watch the video in its entirety and watch it multiple times, that's fine. However you need to go about it, because there's another step. The next step here is going to be to think about the dots. The dots are there not just as visual cues, but also to give us cues on what the notes are. They help us remember the notes in certain positions. So let's go ahead and I'll talk about the E string again first here. I'm going to go back to what we just did with the E string. I know, because of my practice on the guitar for all these years, I know the notes on the E string are E, and then the dots are G, A, B, C sharp, and then E. Quite frankly, if you can just memorize that, you are always one fret away from knowing a note. If you have G, A, B, C sharp, well, if somebody says to you, where's D on the low E string? Well, if you know your 12 notes, here's C sharp, there's D is just one fret above it. So you don't have to count E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D. You don't have to count 12 frets up and take the slow way. You can just think, well, here's C sharp. Next note after that is D. There it is. You'll eventually memorize the notes completely, not just on the dots, but the dots are the start of it. That's how you have to go to start to memorize just, okay, where's this note on this string? Where's that note on this string? It all comes from the dots. That's the whole point of them, okay? So, once again, if we say, where is B flat on that string? Well, if I know B is here, B flat, flat we know means lower than, go one down from B, and that's B flat right there. So you don't have to count up E, F, F sharp, G, and so on to get up to B flat. It's right there knowing B down to B flat. Now the next thing is you're going to notice that the dots are still using the letters of the alphabet. We have G, A, B, C sharp. Think about that. Whenever you have the musical alphabet that, like we said, is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then repeats, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, repeats over and over again, whenever you have G, it goes back to A after that, right? So G to A, that's just going to the next note in the alphabet. Going to B, that's going to the next note in the alphabet. C, now it's C sharp, but it's, for the namesake, it's the letter C, so you're going G, A, B, C sharp. And then we skip D to get back up to the 12th fret on E. But to help you memorize them, they are following the alphabet. G, A, B, C sharp, back to E. Okay? Same thing can be said for the A string. Let's talk about the A string notes. A, then you have C, D, E, F sharp, then back up to A. So you're skipping B, so when you go from A, the open A string, to the 3rd fret, you're going from A to C. But once you have C, you're going through the alphabet again for the next few notes. C, D, E, and then F sharp. So once again, the namesake is F, but the note is F sharp. So C, D, E, F sharp, and then we skip G, which is a half step away from F sharp, and we go back to A. So if you know those notes, C, D, E, F sharp, A, you're always within 1 fret of any note that you could possibly be looking for. So if you want to find a much quicker way to get around your fretboard, start with knowing the 12 notes, then memorize the dots of the E and the A strings, and start to be able to find your notes quicker. It's as simple as that. Now the reason I start with the E and the A strings is because that's where most of your root notes are coming from whenever you're in that beginner and intermediate stage of the guitar playing. So whenever you're finding a pentatonic scale to solo with, for instance, if you're using the minor pentatonic scale, you're doing that from a root note on the low E string. So if somebody says, oh, take a solo in B minor, it's pretty simple. You just have to know E, then G is the 3rd fret, A is the 5th fret, B is the 7th fret. So you can find it really quickly if you know where B is by knowing the dots on the fretboard. So you're always going to get around a lot faster doing that, and then from there, just play your pentatonic scale. Simple as that. And then if you're doing power chords, for instance, where you're moving around those power chord shapes, which is really common in tons of rock music, or if you're doing bar chords where you've learned the bar chords and you're trying to figure out where to put them, whether it's major, minor, dominant 7, whichever bar chords, it doesn't matter. Those are typically, your early ones are starting on the roots of the E and the A strings. You need to know the root notes. So if somebody says, play me a G major chord, well, there it is. It's on the 3rd fret of the low E because you know E is open and then your first dot is G. Now play the shape for the major bar chord in that position. So you're going to apply that same concept to your pentatonic scales, your power chords, and your early bar chords using the E and A string root notes. So really memorizing, like we said, the 12 notes and then the dots of the E and the A string, you instantly access so much information about the guitar itself just from those couple of strings. And here's the other really cool thing is you also have the high E on your guitar, right? That is the same notes as the low E. They're both the exact same. They're both E. The only difference is they're just 2 octaves apart. So this E here is 2 octaves higher than that E there, but they're the same notes. So if you go up the high E, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, and so on, those are the same notes as the low E. E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. You get the idea. So when you're doing that, if you learn the low 2 strings on your guitar, the E and the A strings, you've actually learned half of your guitar already, because you also have the high E string as well. So learn your 12 notes, learn your dots on the E and the A strings. You are already now so far ahead of the game for just being able to find out where you're supposed to go when you're jamming with buddies or looking at, tabs online or anything. You're starting to unlock the fretboard now. So that's my approach to learning the guitar neck. I hope it helps. If you like this video, please comment, like, subscribe, share it with your friends too. It's all appreciated. All right, I'll see you in the next one.